Today, as we gather here in small numbers, the largeness of these numbers is felt. Today is a very auspicious day also. It's Ram Navami. Hopefully, all of us are chosen people in quest of maybe discovering ourselves and the meaning of our existence in this space as was ordained by the Mother to house the Sri Aurobindo Ashram, Delhi branch. The Mother, a lot of us know, but even we can revisit it. The Mother personally sketched the image of the shrine which we see outside, in which for the first time the Master's relics were to be enshrined. The day, 12th February 1956, was an important mandate year. हमें कुछ mandate मिला था उस दिन. ऐसे ही नहीं किस माँ ने चुना कि इस दिन श्री अरविंद के रेलिक्स यहाँ पे की स्थापना होगी. एक आदेश था. तो हम जब संडे के सत्संग में आते हैं, कभी कभी, हर बार, लेकिन क्या ये सत्संग, can this satsang be part of our daily practice? Because it can become a moment for a pause, a moment to mull over our own presence and journey here and its significance, for us to be worthy of the message as was given by the Mother. And what was the message that she gave to us, written in her own handwriting? We see it. Some part of us absorbs it, but we also take it for granted. Because the topic given to me today, or chosen, is Sri Aurobindo and a culture within and without. What is the meaning of this culture? What is that which is within, and what is that which is without? The Mother said, let this place be worthy of its name and manifest the true spirit of Sri Aurobindo's teachings and message to the world. So she's not talking of what we in education called a rote teaching. We read, we come together, we listen for the moment, and we feel good in that moment. And then we have other chores to do. We go back to the world as if we've done what we had to do. But the Mother specifically says the true spirit of Sri Aurobindo's message, his teachings and message. What is the true spirit? Meetu did touch upon it. But how do we feel what is the true teaching? What is the spirit behind the teaching? So we are all on a path of discovering the true spirit of Sri Aurobindo's teachings, not as cogs in the wheel or insects crawling. We need to follow the Master and what is the true spirit behind his teachings and messages to the world. And for this, we have to see Sri Aurobindo and his own journey of transformation. Because we look at Sri Aurobindo as somebody who we'll always look up to. His writings could be difficult. The mother would simplify them. But he did seed something from which the tree of life could grow. So what is it that his journey was? Was he always like this? He had a father who had aspirations and ambitions for him. हम सबको पता है ये बात, लेकिन फिर उसको रिविजिट करें, क्योंकि हम लोगों की जिंदगी भी कहीं उसके साथ वैसे ही जुड़ी हुई है. 7 साल की उम्र में, at the age of 7, how his father wanted him to have an English education. So a 7-year-old boy with his 2 elder brothers was sent to England. And 14 years there. रामनवमी है, राम का भी वनवास था, 14 साल का ही था शायद. So look at that whole ecology outside was preparing him to be an Englishman. Because that's what his father really wanted him to be. He stayed there in Manchester, went to St. Paul's School, went to Cambridge. And in simultaneity, he was getting prepared in his inner self, not knowing what he wanted to do, but what he did not really attach himself. So Sri Aurobindo was not into doing this or that. Somewhere there was an inner attachment. Born in 1872, 15th of August, 7 years in his motherland, off for 14 years. In all this, the journey of inner being was actually, if you look at it, agreeing and disagreeing to the becoming that was being asked of him. So what is this being and becoming? Because otherwise the path is laid for us in this life. You are this, somebody's son, somebody's husband, somebody's daughter. You are an identity. But it was a great opportunity for him, the young Sri Aurobindo, the young Aurobindo, to engage with what he did not think his calling was. So 14 years passed. And then came the Maharaja of Gaikwad, Baroda, who met him in England. It was also the time which we know that he could have got into the civil servant, as a civil servant there. He crossed all the exams, but made himself fail in the horse riding. Was it impossible for him? A man who could study Greek, Latin, could attach himself to that culture and become a white sahab. But something in him, when he met the main person from Baroda and appealed to him that he would like to come back to India. What was it? It was a choice. It was a mandate that he was capable of giving to himself. And if he was capable of giving this mandate to himself, he spent now another 13 years, nearly from 1893 to 1906, in the Baroda service. At Baroda, however, at the last part of it, around 1902, he knew that what he's doing is good. But he was still a seeker. And he used this time to actually understand his own country, for which he was deprived otherwise. He knew Greek, Latin, English. But it was at this time, in the end period of those 13 years, that Sri Aurobindo actually imbued himself for years of self-culture. We talk of culture outside. But he imbued himself for self-culture in a literary activity. Much of his poetry, which was published later in Pondicherry, was written here. But was he engaging only with poetry? It was an expression of the light which Meetu said today, that deep. उसको अपने अंदर से उज्जवल करना, उसको लौ को कुछ देना, और उसके लिए क्या चाहिए था? एक ठहराव. महाराजा का काम करेंगे, बड़ौदा का काम करेंगे, सत्यनिष्ठा के साथ, लेकिन अपने अंदर के लिए समय कि मुझे क्या चाहिए, उस कल्चर को बनाने के लिए एक बहुत बड़ी अंदर से प्रेरणा थी. और बड़ौदा में he also made up the deficiency he felt of his Western education. The Western education was beautiful, but he felt some deficiency. Learned Sanskrit and several modern Indian languages. So why was he doing Sanskrit? Because there was a deeper understanding, both at the mental, the physical, and the spiritual level, at the spirit level, that he does not know all. There is something that he wants to do. And he assimilated the spirit of Indian civilization and its forms past and present. So look at here a man who's an erudite scholar. सब कुछ अच्छी तरह से कर रहे हैं. पिता ने बोला, पर भारत माँ ने क्या बोला? उसकी जो इनकी एक अभीप्सा थी, an aspiration so deep to know the culture, not only of a language, but the spirit of the Indian civilization. And then the political action. So from a student to a worker working for his own self, his political action of Sri Aurobindo covered the next 8 years, from 1902 to 1910. Though he could actually come out in the open only around 1905, because he was still working there. But the actual work had already started from 1902. The outbreak of the agitation against the partition of Bengal in 1905 gave him the opportunity to give up the Baroda service. पर जब भी उन्होंने किसी चीज़ को छोड़ा, क्या उसको पूरी तरीके से छोड़ दिया? उसका सारांश, वो जो एक पेड़ के अंदर बीज है, आपने बहुत अच्छी तरह से बोला, और बीज में पेड़ है, हम सबको पता है, we all know it, but we know it at a mental level. उन्होंने कुछ छोड़ा नहीं, उसका समन्वय किया. He gathered it. And finally he left Baroda. आप सबको ये मालूम है, फिर भी हम उसको टच कर रहे हैं, क्योंकि इसमें बहुत एक हमारे लिए आदेश है. There's a message for us. He left Baroda in 1906 and went to Calcutta as principal of the newly founded Bengal National College. Now, if we step back, if all of us for a moment just close our eyes and step back from the period when he was assimilating India's cultural heritage after his return to England, through the days of him as a nationalist leader and his prosecution for sedition in 1907 when he was acquitted. लहर थी, एक दौर था, एक मनसा थी मां भवानी के साथ जुड़ने की. For him, India was not just a nation which needed to be free of the British. It was the cultural renaissance that he could attach himself to, that India is much more. So politics came as an instrument. But who was the larger instrument? I would say politics came as an opportunity. But the larger opportunity by the instrument was his inherent faith in the Krishna within. बहुत लोग बोलते हैं बहुत बार कि क्या श्री अरविंद कृष्णा हैं? तो एक जगह श्री अरविंद ने लिखा, he wrote that if you worship Krishna, Krishna is in me. तो बोलने की जरूरत नहीं थी. What is Krishna? Meetu also spoke of a Sarthi who takes us. So the one image that we can hold of Sri Aurobindo is that he withdrew from a lot of things, not to say they were not needed, but he thought that the time had come to engage with what was his larger Adesh. And then it was he was put in Alipur jail, we all know about it. And in May 1909, he was finally acquitted from the Alipur jail. But he had spent a year in there, 1 saal. And that 1 year was like he was actually part of his yoga, because he found quietude. So when we look at culture outside, we look at engagement, maybe with poetry, with writing, with theatre, with life, reading. But that inner culture within was a great opportunity for 1 whole year. And then, once he came out, in February 1910, these dates may not be important, but the journey is. And how do we connect this journey जो पड़ाव हमने अपनी जिंदगी में लिए हों? किसी ने हमें पढ़ाया, किसी ने हमारा घर बसाया, किसी ने हमें कुछ करने को बोला और हम करते गए, पर उसमें हम कहाँ थे? द कल्चर विदिन, क्योंकि मेरे अंदर भी एक भावना है. आई हैव समथिंग वेरी ब्यूटिफुल विदिन मी. एंड फ्रॉम चंद्रनगौर एट द बिगिनिंग ऑफ अप्रैल he sailed for Pondicherry in French India. देखिए कहाँ से? Soon the magnitude of his spiritual work he had taken up appeared to him. जब ठहराव आया जेल के बाद, तो उन्होंने देखा कि उनका जितना भी काम कर रहे हैं, he needs to be in exclusive concentration of all his energies. And I know no better than Dr. Bijlani, who gave up so much and still does a lot, but then comes to that inclusive time for himself. So how do so many of us, भागम भाग जिंदगी की दौड़ में, हम कैसे अपने लिए समय निकालें? क्या खाली एक संडे का समय होगा? क्योंकि संडे के समय में एक कोशिश है और बहुत अच्छी है, उसको रोकना नहीं है. But can we look at the journey? And then during all his stay in Pondicherry, from 1910 onward, he remained more and more exclusively devoted to his spiritual work and sadhana. In 1914, after 4 years of quietude and getting, he began the publication of the Arya. Most of more important works came out. हम सबको मालूम है, हर जब मौका मिले, उनकी एस्पिरेशन थी डिवाइन लाइफ, पर उन्होंने लिखा लाइफ डिवाइन. द सिंथेसिस ऑफ योगा भी लिखा, एसेज ऑन द गीता भी लिखा, ईशा उपनिषद को भी लिखा. लेकिन कुछ और था जो वो तलाश कर रहे थे. उनको ये मौका भी मिला इस टाइम कि वो अपनी जो पोइट्री लिखी थी उन्होंने, कहाँ पे, बड़ौदा में, उसको भी छपवाएं. पर उनके अंदर कुछ और था. जहाँ एवरीबडी एल्स वॉज लुकिंग एट स्पिरिट इन अ पर्टिकुलर मैनर, जो माँ ने कहा शुरू में, द स्पिरिट बिहाइंड, where everybody was looking at a spirit, Sri Aurobindo was not looking at an ordinary nirvana. Okay, we are born, we will live, and then we will pass into the other world. और जब हम दूसरी दुनिया में जाएंगे, उसमें हमारे को निर्वाणा मिल जाएगा. ये एक बहुत शुरू की एक कड़ी थी. He understood that there is something more. But what is the spirit? He did write the foundation of Indian culture. Maybe Dr. Bijlani, Meetu we will all get together and have readings on these. But today I'm taking a very different connotation of the culture. But we should know if we want to go back. उन्होंने ह्यूमन साइकिल भी लिखी, जिसमें द फ्यूचर पोइट्री भी है, द आइडियल ऑफ ह्यूमन यूनिटी भी लिखा. बट लिटरली श्री औरबिंदो began his practice of yoga around 1902 and 1904. At first gathering into it the essential elements of spiritual experience and spiritual realization followed till now in India. Because एक इंडिया का एक हमारे एक धरोहर है. We have a cultural inheritance. हम कहते हैं ना generational wealth. So India has a generational wealth. He, however, passed on and pressed himself at every moment to search of a more complete experience, uniting and harmonizing the two ends of existence, to bring harmony to the spirit and matter. He was a seer. Seer कौन होता है? जिसके अंदर दिव्य दृष्टि होती है, जो चुना जाता है. So he was a seer and saw the journey in a very simple way, from the stone to the plant, from the plant to the animal, and from the animal to man. And yet he saw that still man is a thinking and talking animal in his material habits and instincts. He saw that nature cannot be satisfied with this imperfect result. So we have come from the stone, and then there is the plant. And from the plant, it is the animal life. And from the animal life, do we want to only become a talking animal with all creature comforts and the mind to be so strong? But what he wanted is, who will be to man? He wanted in his heart, उनके एक अनुभूति थी उनको that man can rise, man can transform himself. And this man will be what man is to an animal. A being who will remain a man in its external form, and yet whose consciousness, and this is what is the cultural wealth that he has given to us, will rise above the mental and its slavery to ignorance. Because हमें लगता है हमें सब कुछ आता है, हमने क्या सीखना है. So Sri Aurobindo came to earth to teach this truth to man. आपने truth की बात भी की थी, सच्चाई की, जिसकी तरफ हम जा सकते हैं. He told us that man is only a transitional being, living in transitional consciousness. बहुत बड़ी बात है ये. हमको लगता है हमारा माइंड है, हमारी विल है, और हमको सब आता है. But the moment you hear, or the moment he felt that man is a transitional being in a transitional consciousness, but with the ability of living in a new consciousness. And that is the crux of his growth. That we are capable of, in this life, not by going to the jungle, not by giving rest, not by abandoning our whole life, but we are capable of living a life properly harmonious, good, beautiful, and fully conscious. During the whole of his life upon earth, Sri Aurobindo has given to us an inner strength to ascend to divine life. And that is the meaning of human journey, the work of works, the acceptable sacrifice. This alone, even if few of us understand this and follow it in our daily practices, this alone is the real business of life. And I'm putting it as is the business of life, without which we would only be an insect among the ephemeral insects on a speck of surface, mud and water, which has managed to form itself amid the appalling immensities of the physical universe. So, what Sri Aurobindo said to us, there is a possibility to change the earthly life. For what Sri Aurobindo represents in the history of the earth's spiritual progress is not a teaching, not even a revelation. It is a mighty action straight from the Supreme. And how do we reach that without the mother's help? Because she was his spiritual collaborator. And the mother, in all her beauty, in all her understanding of the Western world, and then choosing to stay in the Bharat with Sri Aurobindo, in whom she saw Krishna, she added the work of building the ashram. So when we come to an ashram like this, and we think that we know everything and we could read something, but the mother has given us some tools. So maybe on your chairs when you were there, you'll find one card. There are many cards. But maybe it's a moment to and you'll get what mother wants you to do. Maybe that's an area we all need to work in. So somebody would have got sincerity, somebody would have got humility, somebody would have got gratitude, somebody would have got perseverance. आपको नहीं मिला तो आप आके यहाँ से ले सकते हैं. इनको दे दीजिए. पर सबके अंदर जो सबसे ज्यादा चीज है, जो एक श्री अरविंद ने बोला, that we are convinced by experience that above the mind there is a consciousness much wiser than the mental wisdom. And in the depths of things, there is a will much more powerful than the human will. So what is our work? For within and without, it is to look at our own incompleteness. And in the mind, in the body, and in the spirit, to see the possibilities that are within us. It is not outside. It is on our daily practice. When somebody is getting very upset with me, and I want to retaliate, what do? I can take a moment, and this is something which the mother has said. We can take a moment and look at it with a new consciousness and go deeper into the other person. It's not intent and reason which the Western world has given to us. The chat GPT which you sent was so beautiful. It is taking a pause and moving into the other person, practicing it, not engaging from what I know is the best, because that's my limitation. And what I know, there is much more to it. So with that higher consciousness, one attaches oneself to the true spirit. And these are the questions which satsangs like these need to ask. So, while others were concerned with the spirit and its significance of Indian civilization and culture, the true meaning of the Vedas, which is very important, the progress of human society, which is equally important, the nature and evolution of poetry, the possibility of the unification of the human race. And we are staying at a very difficult time in life, because unification of human beings is an important agenda. But it is, with Sri Aurobindo, it is possible by opening to a greater divine consciousness, to rise to the inner light and bliss, discover one's true self, remain in constant union with the divine. And what does it need? Just words? It needs practice. It needs a daily affirmation of finding a time and looking within. So, to realize the possibility within myself, ourselves, at an individual level and a collective level. And I'm not talking only of Jungian collective consciousness. But how do we collect each other as a samhu? That's a very powerful, because when the ashram was set, mother said even if there are 12 people with an aspiration and a new consciousness, aspiration, the work can be done. So it is not the numbers. If we all gather together, and then we see that his work was not a teaching. The spirit behind his work was a revelation. It is a mighty action straight from the Supreme. We can talk about it. We can mull over it. But I would request each one of us to find that me time. एक समय जो मेरे लिए हो और मैं अपने दायरे से, अपनी पिक्चर फ्रेम के अंदर मैं इतना हो गया हूँ, हो गई हूँ. आई एम सो एम्बेडेड इन माई पिक्चर दैट आई कैन नॉट see the whole immensity I am capable of. So man is capable to move from the animal man in this life. That is the possibility of the culture within and without. Mind is an ignorance seeking after truth. But this is a self-existent knowledge harmoniously manifesting the play of its forms and forces. It is only by the descent of this supermind that the perfection dreamed of by all that is highest in humanity can come. It is possible by opening to a greater divine consciousness, to rise to this power of light and bliss. Discover one's true self, remain in constant union with the divine, and bring the supramental force for the transformation of mind and life and body. To realize this possibility has been the dynamic aim of Sri Aurobindo's yoga. As we gently connecting ourselves to ourselves, open our eyes, connecting to this beautiful journey of the Master, which shows possibility of adaptation and connection to the divine within.